it's really, in a sense, the breakdown of every kind of security system. The state security system, and it's, of course, you fall through that. You fall through the community security systems of the local communities, and you fall through the family support systems. And you fall through all of those is where you land on the streets. And it's very hard for people in that situation to change their lives. That was one important finding. We found that, again, contrary to popular belief, very small proportion of homeless people pay. Less than 10%, both among children and among adults, if at all, beg even transitionally. Begging is not a preferred option. People, even accepting charity food is considered very humiliating. Dignity is extremely important. The Delhi government used to have a program for a short period, for some years, based on requests and interventions by us, where they asked people to distribute food. People said they didn't go because they would throw the food, that they would have to, stand and eat at the pavement. So we realized that dignity was really important. We found that the homeless people tend to get more and more isolated on the streets, and they talked about loneliness as being a very, very important part of being homeless. I don't remember the exact figures, but some striking thing about 2/3 of people said they had no friends ever, at all, on the streets. We asked them how they celebrate. We developed a very careful set of questions by which we wanted to understand their lives. How do you celebrate festivals? And they couldn't recall when they last celebrated a festival, for instance. We found that, ironically, being homeless is extremely expensive. And you might wonder why. Almost everything that we would take for granted in a house has to be paid for by them. You want to go to the toilet, you have to pay. You want clean drinking water, you have to buy it somewhere. You want to have a bath, you have to do it. Home cooked meal is not possible. You always have to buy street food, far more expensive than we would have it. And on a cold winter night in a place like Delhi, there's a whole set of entrepreneurs we found in Jama Masjid area who have come up over many years, who actually hire out quilts and mattresses to homeless people at quite exorbitant rates. And so we found that if you want to have sleep on a winter night, you have to pay 10 rupees for a mattress, 10 rupees for a quilt. And on the top, if you want small plastic, just proof so that the sleet and you're protected from the sleet on a cold winter night, then you have to pay another 10 rupees, which means 30 rupees a night, 900 rupees a month, simply to be able to sleep homeless. So these were some of, and I could go on. I mean, in Chennai, I remember we asked them, what do you do when it rains in the extremes of climate? And so in Chennai, we got an interesting answer, which was not there from any of the other cities, where they said that they tend to go to cinema halls and they keep buying tickets, hoping that till night show. So even protecting yourself from rain is quite expensive. But after midnight, if the rain doesn't stop, that is when it's really difficult. And then they simply have to sit under the lofts of the shop and sit like this. So I just wanted to start with a picture of what it is to be homeless. We find very high levels of mental health distress among homeless people. after my description, I don't think it would be difficult to understand why you find it. I'm amazed that you don't find more. I try to look at homeless people many parts of the world. Whenever I visit a city, I try to find somebody who can help me meet the homeless, and you get to see the city in a very different kind of way. What I found that in the countries of the north, very often homelessness is the outcome of what is called family dysfunction, and mental illness, mental health problems often drives people onto the streets. In India, there is a small proportion of that, but I find that the reverse is really the case. I mean, that people are driven to the streets primarily because of two sets of reasons. One is extreme poverty. In fact, say in Delhi, we found that 70% or more of the in a study we done with Ashray initially, and even in this much more detailed ethnographic study, we found that 70% or more homeless people tend to be single working men in Delhi, who actually are there so that their families survive in the villages where there are no other options. And when you ask them, why are you homeless, they say that if we earn enough, everybody in the city, even as a rat picker, you earn 100 rupees a day. But if I spend that money to hire myself a room and to live well, then my whole family would die. And I began to understand that homelessness is often a choice of great heroism and sacrifice. And so one person sacrifices his life, and so that his younger brother doesn't have to have the same situation. In fact, they actually say, I've lived this life, but I don't want even my younger brother to have to come into this. That's one predominant reason. In Chennai, we found much less single men as much as we found whole homeless families. We also found a situation which was somewhat different here, because we found that the homeless families in Chennai, quite interestingly, reported being in the same spot of the same pavement for the last 80 years. We found 5 generations of people had lived on the same piece of pavement in Chennai. Chennai is quite distinct in that way. I interpret it by being the fact that you probably have the most tolerant civic administration, which allows people to live homeless. But it's also not compassionate enough to help them find ways that takes them beyond the situation of homelessness. But it's much better than Delhi or Calcutta, where they have to keep running around and they're pushed away and they're brutalized and so on. So those are distinctions. But in Chennai itself, the whole homeless family tends to come here, but they are also largely working people that we see. The other category, I said that the large amount of people homeless that I have been able to understand are here driven out because of extreme poverty from their villages. There's a much smaller proportion, but a high proportion of women and a high proportion of children who are homeless because of violence in the home, abusive parents, spouses, drugs, alcohol, uncaring situations, and street kids tend to be kids who are by temperament, very self-respecting and brave, and so at the age of 6 or 8, they walk out of an abusive situation saying, I won't take it anymore. Most of us through our entire lifetimes would not have the courage to walk away from an abusive situation if you have the security of a home. So that gives a certain personality to the street kids. Women are women who are pushed out because of violence in the house, patriarchy, absence of choices, and so on and so forth. So I'm making generalizations, of which there will be, of course, huge sets of exceptions, but this is really both out of the study and about 10 years of continuous working with the homeless. I just wanted to say that this is the picture. there's a very tiny proportion of the